Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. So before starting, I would like to remind you some housekeeping rules. Those who are not speaking are kindly requested to unmute their microphones and possibly the videos. But when you are speaking, you can switch on. Unmute your microphone and then the video. This will help us better listen to everybody or to each other. And if you have some questions, also you can post them in the chat room, questions or comments. Okay, so that panelists can respond to them. We also inform you that there will be a discussion session after the presentation from the panelists. Thank you very much. So good afternoon again. So let us start. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear partners, my name is Saliu Sal. I am the Senior Program Coordinator of UNESCO ICBA. Your Excellency Dr. Seymour Fatalieves, Ambassador at Large, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO. Uh, dear Mr. Rushan Nazibov, Senior of Azerbaijan to Ethiopia. Dear Dr. Bezawit Jirma, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO Ethiopia. Dear Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, Director of UNESCO ICBA. Dear panelists, dear participants, esteemed guests, esteemed colleagues. At the peak of the COVID-19, over 1 billion learners globally were affected by school closures, creating a real risk of a lost generation, particularly among girls and young women. Many countries have put in place mechanisms not only to address those challenges, but to get better prepared to efficiently face any similar crisis in the future. Among those countries, we have the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, whose experiences in the area are worth sharing. It is for that reason that UNESCO ICBA, in collaboration with the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan, is organizing this experience sharing online webinar entitled Bridging the Gender and Digital Divide and Inequalities in Teaching and Learning Amidst Crisis. The objectives of the webinar will be shared to you by Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki during her opening welcoming remarks. But to deal with that very important and timely topic, we have invited a group of panelists who will tell us more about how the Azerbaijan Republic addresses the issues of gender in education. They are composed of Mr. Fuad Husseinov, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and IDP, Internally Displaced Peoples. Mr. Ravan Hazarnov, Executive Director of Baku International Multiculturalism Center. Dr. Ukar Uzeinova, Deputy Director, Institute of Education, Azerbaijan. Ms. Fidan Nazarfoda, Ministry of Education, Head of Department ICT for Education. Mushkumar Igar Gizi, Leading Advisor, the State Committee for Family, Women and Children Affairs. We also have among the panelists our colleague Dr. Victoria Kizakie, Senior Program Coordinator at ICBA, who will share some experiences on how Africa is addressing the issue. But before giving them the floor, we'll have the honor to listen to 3 remarks. First of all, the director of UNESCO ICBA, Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, will deliver the welcoming remarks. Then Mr. Ruslan Nazibov, Syria, Her Excellency Syria of Azerbaijan to Ethiopia, will make the opening remark before we proceed with the remark from His Excellency Dr. Teimur Fataliev, Ambassador at Large, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO. The closing remarks of this very important webinar will be made by Dr. Bezawit Girma, Secretary General of National Commission for UNESCO Ethiopia. So without any further ado, I hand the floor over to Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, Director of UNESCO ICBA, for the opening remark. Yumiko, you are with us. I give you the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Okay. Thank you, and salut. His Excellency Dr. Seymour Fataliev, Ambassador at Large, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO in Azerbaijan, Mr. Ruslan Nasibov, Charge d'Affaires of Embassy of Azerbaijan in Ethiopia, and the distinguished panelist, Mr. Fuad Husseinov, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and IDPs, Mr. Ravan Hazarnov, Executive Director of Baku International Multicultural Center, Dr. Ukal Husseinova, Deputy Director of Institute of Education, Azerbaijan, Ms. Fidan Najefova, Ministry of Education, Head of Department of ICT for Education, Ms. Kumal Irgalgidze, leading advisor for the State Committee for Family, Women and Children's Affairs, and Dr. Bezavit Girma, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO Ethiopia, Dr. Victoria Kisache, Senior Program Coordinator of ICBA, respected guests and colleagues. It's so nice to see you virtually. Many countries in sub-Saharan Africa were signatory to the gender equality in education made by the global community through the 2015 Incheon Declaration on Education, which is the Education 2030 Framework for Action. Sustainable Development Goal 4, particularly Target 4.5, obligates all countries to put in place measures to eliminate the gender disparities in education by 2030. At the African continental level, Africa's Agenda 2063 encourages member states to incorporate the gender equality in their strategies, plans, and monitoring and the development of the continent. The Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CESA 1625, presents a strong justification for gender equality. Furthermore, the third pillar of CESA states that gender equality and sensitivity should be embedded within the education and training systems. So we have a framework, but following these commitments, countries are steadily working towards achievement of the global and continental education commitments to provide equitable and quality education for all the citizens, as well as to close the gender gap as stipulated in their constitutions. Through the gender gap, though this gender gap has nearly been eliminated in primary education in recent years in terms of the access, gender disparities remain deeply entrenched in terms of learning environments, school completion rates, and learning outcomes. The COVID-19 pandemic also curbed the progress. The pandemic that forced school closure at the global level for more than a year affected billions of learners, especially girls and young women in Africa. The lack of proper training for teachers on emergency responses, lack of policy, including ICT policies and the education sector, and lack of ICT skills among teachers and poor access to technological tools like internet, laptop, and also among learners affected the provision of digital learning opportunities that has also exacerbated the existing inequality in Africa. In Africa, many teachers, especially in hard-to-reach areas, were greatly affected. Discrimination is also more severe in marginalized areas, including rural areas, conflict and post-conflict areas, where there are limited education resources. The aspiration in continental and global commitments on learning for all therefore require a renewed and innovative approaches that focus on classroom practice and the school environment. Experience reveals that the gender-responsive pedagogy ensures that both girls and boys are valued in their uniqueness, even in time of crisis. Gender-responsive pedagogy has furthermore been identified as a critical component of efforts to enhance the engagement of girls in learning, therefore improving learning outcomes, contributing towards gender equality and equity at all levels of education. UNESCO ICBA, in partnership with UNICEF and the FAWE, Forum for African Women Educationalists, developed a revised gender responsive pedagogy toolkit, building on the efforts and lessons learned from the experience of implementing gender responsive pedagogy in many African countries. This experience sharing webinar with Azerbaijan, therefore, will give us an insight on how the Azerbaijan Republic addresses the issue of gender in education. The country has achieved gender equality much earlier than many countries in the world. For example, women started voting in Azerbaijan in 1918, earlier than most countries in the world, including the United States and England. Even during COVID-19 pandemic, despite closure of the schools, Azerbaijan not only managed retention, but also enrollment has increased through an implementation of gender-responsive online learning opportunities for all learners. UNESCO ICBA therefore organized this webinar for African education analysts and policymakers to share two important lessons learned from Azerbaijan. So today's webinar aims on how to learn how the government of Azerbaijan has addressed the gender digital divide to ensure access to teaching and learning through the use of gender-responsive ICT delivery mode to maintain girls' education in the time of COVID-19 pandemic. Secondly, how the government of Azerbaijan has institutionalized the use of innovative practices of education in changing the lives of young girls. I hope this webinar will help member states in Africa to create a platform for learning as well as sharing their own experiences as well. I'm personally very much interested in learning from Azerbaijan. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. I welcome you all to this very interesting webinar. Thank you very much. Back to you, Saliu.
Thank you very much, Director Yumiko, Director of UNESCO ICBA, for this very important where you have emphasized the importance given to gender equality in both agendas, Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063, especially in the CESAR. You have also focused on the impact of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic in the education of girls and young women on all challenges related to online and distance learning, which widen the gaps, but also the relevance of hearing from Azerbaijan experience as far as this issue is concerned. So thank you to Mr. Ruslan Nazibov for the opening remarks. So Mr. Ruslan, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Salo, I hear you. Thank you very much.
Please go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear Dr. Yumiko Yokazaki, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm honored to open today's webinar dedicated to sharing of Azerbaijan experience in bridging gender digital divide and inequalities in teaching and learning. I'd like to thank the UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa and Azerbaijan National Commission for UNESCO and all involved entities for making this webinar come true. This initiative comes amidst ongoing changes worldwide and in the African continent in particular. Outcomes of today's webinar are important and we are ready to continue that practice in future with entities concerned. It is noteworthy to mention that Azerbaijan, as the incumbent chair of the non-alignment movement with 120 member states, amongst which 53 are from Africa, has prioritized the African continent to focus on during its tenure. And it is also remarkable to note that today's webinar is taking place on Africa Day, a symbol of unity and determination of African people. I would like to congratulate on this occasion all our African participants with this day. I welcome you to this event and wish to all participants a knowledgeably productive time. I wouldn't like to take much of your time, as distinguished speakers prepared brief but comprehensive presentations on unique experience of Azerbaijan in the respective fields. I would like to thank Dr. Yumiko Yokazaki for introducing our speakers, but I also would like to do the same. And before I give the floor to His Excellency Dr. Seymour Fataliyev, Ambassador at Large and Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO of the Republic of Azerbaijan. So today we will see the presentations by Dr. Ravan Hazarnov, Executive Director of Baku International Multiculturalism Center. He will be joining us shortly before the presentation, as he will be doing that from Shusha city, a cultural capital of Azerbaijan. Mr. Fuad Husseinov, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and Internally Displaced Persons of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Dr. Ülker Babayeva, Deputy Director of the Institute of Education, Azerbaijan. Ms. Fidan Najafova, Head of Department in the Bureau on ICT for Education of the Ministry of Education of the Republic of Azerbaijan. And Ms. Humar Ilgargızı, Leading Advisor in the State Committee for Family, Women and Children Affairs of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Good afternoon once again, and I wish all the participants a successful day and successful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ruslan Nazibov, for these very important remarks. You have emphasized the timeliness of this webinar, and we really appreciate your desire to continue this kind of practice, and welcome the invitation to the Africa Day and the coincidence with Africa Day, between the Africa Day and this seminar. And thank you also for introducing the panelists. Now, I'm going to give the floor to His Excellency Dr. Seymour Fataliyev, Ambassador at Large, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO, for the remarks. So, His Excellency, if you can hear me, you have the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde, Madame la Directrice, est-ce que tout le monde m'entende? Allô?
Yes, oui, on vous entend.
Très bien. Donc, Madame la Directeur, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues, tout d'abord, je salue chacun d'entre vous lors du webinaire d'aujourd'hui et au nom de la Commission nationale de la République d'Azerbaïdjan pour l'UNESCO, je remercie la direction du bureau régional de l'UNESCO en Éthiopie et l'ambassade de notre pays pour cette invitation. Je voudrais saisir cette occasion pour féliciter nos collègues d'Afrique à l'occasion de la Journée d'Afrique le 25 mai et souhaiter aux pays africains la paix, la sécurité et la prospérité. Dans le webinaire d'aujourd'hui, vous abordez un sujet très important. Ainsi, dans le contexte de la mondialisation des temps modernes, des questions telles que la représentation active des femmes dans la vie publique, l'égalité des sexes sont importantes pour l'humanité. Ce n'est pas hasard si l'égalité des genres et l'éducation figurent parmi les principales activités de l'UNESCO. Aujourd'hui, nous partageons l'expérience positive de l'Azerbaïdjan dans ces domaines. Je voudrais vous informer du travail effectué par l'Azerbaïdjan dans le cadre de l'UNESCO, principalement sur les questions de l'éducation et des genres. Pour l'information, je voudrais souligner que le 2022, c'est une année importante en termes de relations entre l'Azerbaïdjan et l'UNESCO. Cette année, nous célébrons le 30e anniversaire de l'adhésion d'Azerbaïdjan à l'UNESCO. Au cours de la période écoulée, la coopération entre l'Azerbaïdjan et l'UNESCO est développée dans les divers domaines, notamment l'éducation et l'égalité de sexe. Parlant de développement de la coopération de notre pays avec l'organisation, je voudrais souligner le rôle de première vice-présidente de l'Azerbaïdjan, l'ambassadrice de bonne volonté de l'UNESCO, Mme Mehriban Aliyeva. Grâce à l'attention et au soutien de Mme Aliyeva, l'Azerbaïdjan a grandement contribué à la promotion des valeurs de l'UNESCO dans la protection du patrimoine culturel, matériel et immatériel, l'éducation, le dialogue interculturel, l'égalité des sexes et d'autres domaines conformément aux activités de l'UNESCO. La Fondation Haïdar Aliyev, dirigée par Mme Aliyeva, a mis en œuvre divers projets et programmes pour l'éducation des filles dans les pays asiatiques et africains. De façon générale, l'Azerbaïdjan est entré dans l'histoire comme premier pays de l'Orient musulman à ouvrir une école laïque pour les filles. En 1901, à l'initiative et en frais personnels du magnat pétrolier, grand philanthrope Hacı Zeynalabdin Tagiev, une école pour les filles est ouverte à Baku. Des dizaines et des centaines d'années après, l'aphorisme « 6 après de Zeynalabdin Tagiev serait toujours d'actualité. Si vous donnez l'éducation à un garçon, vous obtenez une personne éduquée. Mais si vous éduquez une fille, vous formez une famille éduquée. Aujourd'hui, je voudrais souligner avec fierté que cette activité caritative et nombre d'autres de Zeynalabdin Tagiev sont connus dans le monde entier et le 200e anniversaire de sa naissance est inclus dans le programme des anniversaires de l'UNESCO pour célébrer les personnalités éminentes et des événements importants. L'une de nos autres réussites historiques a été la fondation en 1918 de la première République démocratique apparue dans le monde de l'Ouest, où les femmes avaient le droit de voter en Azerbaïdjan. À ce moment, il convient de souligner que l'expérience d'Azerbaïdjan en matière d'accroître du droit de vote aux femmes, qui est l'élément le plus important de l'égalité des sexes, est un exemple unique. Pour l'information, je voudrais dire que les femmes aux États-Unis ont obtenu le droit de vote en 1920, en Grande-Bretagne en 1928, en France en Italie en 1945 et en Grèce en 1952. Je voudrais souligner qu'un certain nombre de projets ont été mis en œuvre en Azerbaïdjan au cours de différentes années dans le cadre de la participation de l'UNESCO aux activités des États membres. La plupart de ces projets sont consacrés aux questions de genre. Je voudrais attirer votre attention sur certains d'entre eux. Pour les années 2016-2017, projet améliorer les opportunités d'emploi et des qualités professionnelles des filles réfugiées et déplacées ayant une éducation incomplète. Les femmes créées, discussions créatives sur l'égalité des sexes et les réalisations des femmes en Azerbaïdjan. Pour les années 2018-2019, programme de formation nationale des femmes dans les numériques et ateliers d'été pour les filles, les technologies de l'information et de la communication. Pour l'année 2020-21, projet accroître la participation des filles à la formation des ingénieurs pour le développement durable. Je voudrais dire avec sûreté qu'aujourd'hui l'Azerbaïdjan est l'un des membres les plus actifs de l'UNESCO. En tant que nouveau pays donateur, notre pays contribue au projet de l'UNESCO. À cet égard, je voudrais souligner que l'Azerbaïdjan a signé en 2013 avec l'UNESCO un accord cadré de la coopération dans les domaines de l'éducation, des sciences, de la culture et du dialogue. Sur la base du présent accord avec le Fonds solidaire Azerbaïdjan-l'UNESCO, l'Azerbaïdjan a mis en œuvre quelques projets sur l'éducation, les filles et l'égalité des sexes dans un certain nombre de pays africains, par exemple la Ouganda, Kenya, Tanzanie et Libéria. Chers collègues, comme vous le savez, la sphère de l'éducation a été les domaines les plus touchés par la pandémie de COVID-19. La coalition mondiale pour l'éducation a été créée à l'initiative de l'UNESCO pour faire face aux effets de la pandémie. Je tiens à souligner que l'Azerbaïdjan a été l'un des premiers pays à rejoindre cette coalition et un accord pertinent a été signé le 20 décembre 2021 pour adopter sa contribution financière. Comme vous le savez, la région africaine, l'une des priorités de l'UNESCO. En tant que membre du conseil exécutif, l'une des trois organes principaux de l'UNESCO pour l'année 2021-2025, l'Azerbaïdjan entend contribuer aux activités de l'Organisation pour l'Afrique. À cet égard, je voudrais attirer votre attention sur le fait que la Commission nationale de la République d'Azerbaïdjan pour l'UNESCO, avec l'une des principales universités de notre pays, intitulée l'Université Ada, et avec l'UNESCO, a proposé d'organiser un programme de formation avec la participation des secrétaires généraux des commissions nationales africaines pour l'UNESCO. La proposition est actuellement examinée par l'UNESCO et j'espère que l'UNESCO exprimera bientôt sa position positive sur la question. Je serai heureux de voir mes chers collègues africains en Azerbaïdjan dans le cadre de cet événement. L'objectif principal de ce programme de la formation est de développer davantage la coopération existante entre l'Azerbaïdjan et les pays africains de l'UNESCO et d'informer les pays africains sur les activités menées dans notre pays. Le travail effectué, les réalisations dans les domaines relevant du mandat de l'UNESCO et d'échanger des expériences. Pour terminer, je voudrais aborder brièvement les questions de coopération au sein du mouvement des pays non alignés. Le mouvement des non alignés, donc la quasi-totalité des pays africains sont membres et qui réunit au total 120 États, est la deuxième plus grande institution politique internationale dans le monde après les Nations Unies. L'Azerbaïdjan a présidé avec le succès le mouvement des non-alignés en 2019-2022 et la présidence d'Azerbaïdjan a été prolongée jusqu'à la fin de 2023 par une décision unanime des membres de l'organisation. Au sein de cette plateforme, l'Azerbaïdjan entretient également une coopération mutuellement bénéfique avec les pays africains. Je voudrais attirer votre attention sur le fait que demain, le 26 mai 2022, le ministère des Affaires étrangères de la République d'Azerbaïdjan et le Centre d'analyse des relations internationales tiendront une conférence sur l'héritage de l'Afrique dans l'évolution du mouvement non aligné. Ceci, à son tour, c'est une preuve réelle et de l'importance que l'Azerbaïdjan accorde à la coopération avec le continent africain. Sur ce, je voudrais conclure mon discours. Je suis sûr que le webinaire d'aujourd'hui sera très utile. Des représentants et des experts gouvernementaux compétents de notre pays vous informeront plus en détail sur les questions d'éducation et de genre selon leur domaine. Aujourd'hui, vous découvrirez le modèle azerbaïdjanais de multiculturalisme ainsi que l'expérience azerbaïdjanaise en matière d'intégration des réfugiés et des personnes déplacées, la politique de genre de notre pays et les réformes de l'éducation. Merci pour votre attention et je vous souhaite beaucoup de succès pour le travail de ce webinaire. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, Dr Seymour Fatalibes, ambassadeur secrétaire général de la Commission nationale pour l'UNESCO. Merci pour cette brillante intervention, pleine d'informations également. Vous êtes revenu sur la journée de l'Afrique, célébrée le 25, et l'importance du sujet, notamment relativement à la place accordée à la fille et à la femme dans l'éducation. Et vous avez fait montre de l'expérience d'Azerbaïdjan en matière d'éducation. Et nous souhaitons vraiment un joyeux anniversaire à l'occasion du 30e anniversaire de l'adhésion de l'Azerbaïdjan au niveau de l'UNESCO. Vous avez aussi fait cas du rôle primaire que l'Azerbaïdjan a joué dans l'ouverture à la laïcité et à la démocratie, ceci bien avant même beaucoup de pays européens ou occidentaux. Et les mesures innovantes que vous avez prises, n'est-ce pas, visant l'autonomisation des femmes et la promotion de l'éducation, la science et la culture, ainsi que l'appui à l'UNESCO pour la priorité Afrique sont vraiment à saluer. Nous attendons avec impatience, n'est-ce pas, d'entendre des panélistes, n'est-ce pas, pour partager les expériences en matière d'éducation et de réfugiés, n'est-ce pas, au niveau d'Azerbaïdjan. En tout cas, merci encore pour l'honneur que vous nous avez fait et l'invitation est bien prise pour les prochaines séances. À présent, nous allons poursuivre avec les panels. La panéliste suivante, c'est Dr Victoria Kisakie, Senior Program Coordinator. So Victoria is going to tell us about the topic, addressing gender disparities and inequality through teacher training and education in Africa. Victoria, you have the floor. Victoria?
Thank you. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead with your
presentation. I have very few minutes, so I'll just say, Your Excellencies, all protocol observed, colleagues that are online, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just proceed into my presentation. It's just an honor to be able to talk about some of the experiences that we have had in Africa in addressing gender disparities and inequalities through teacher education and training. I'm not showing my video because of the internet bumps, so I might go off anytime, so kindly bear with me. So in Africa, there are quite a number of things that have caused for us to address the gender disparities in teacher education, among which include the low completion rates of primary education for girls. We have very few transition rates when it comes to girls' education, only 63% overall, like transiting to secondary school. We have a lot of gender biases among teachers in many African countries that are still prevalent, and significant barriers in achieving the gender equality. We have a lack of gender pedagogical skills for instruction. And you know, the way we are brought up, it takes a while for us to unlearn our gender biased beliefs and behaviors amongst teachers. So there are quite a number of buzzwords that have been flying around in terms of gender parity, equity, and gender equality. But overall, we want to say that gender equity means that we are able to think through the process of being fair for all women and men, boys and girls, so that we can be able to effectively compensate for all the disadvantages and issues that they have within the schooling system. Now, when we look at the education system in Africa, you can classify them into three different groups. We have education systems that are more of that are unaware of gender disparities. They have gender blind policies and interventions, and they do not necessarily differentiate the aspirations and needs of each of the genders, the boys and girls. Some of them may perpetuate dominant policies and practices and hence end up fostering gender inequality. But then we also have some systems that are gender aware others have got some bit of gender responsive strategies and interventions, but they remain dominantly biased. We also have some gender transformative policies and interventions that go beyond addressing the aspirations and capacities of each of the genders. But overall, we say that when we look at gender in the education sector, we advocate for more of gender transformative systems and approaches. In my next slide, I just talk about some of the critical issues that we look at when you're thinking about gender mainstreaming or gender transformation in teaching and learning. When we look at the teacher and the classroom environment, we want to know if our learners' needs are being catered for. I mean, boys and girls, are they being taken into account? Is the learning environment conducive for both boys and girls? Are the materials that are being used in the classroom environment non-discriminatory? Are the teachers aware of the fact that they don't need to reinforce negative stereotypes? Are both boys and girls encouraged, especially when it comes like to science subjects or science technological subjects? Are both boys and girls encouraged to take on these subjects? And then when we look at the teachers, are the teachers supporting and empowering the girls in to be more assertive in the classroom environment and also to participate in extracurricular activities or co-curricular activities? Then we go beyond the classroom and look at the facilities within the school environment. The sanitation facilities, we look at the school leaders, we look at the parents and the communities, but we also look at the national policies in general and the awareness of the teachers on these national policies and legal frameworks, especially around issues related to school-related gender-based violence. Now, there are various approaches that we have used in from the institute that I work with, that is the ICBA. And we encourage countries to make sure that when you're thinking about gender mainstreaming or addressing gender inequalities in teacher education, think about assessment of, first of all, assessing the barriers that are impacting on the access to education opportunities. In other words, we are trying to look at the gender needs and also analyzing the context, because each country has got its own issues and challenges. Then without the policy level, it's difficult to address some of these issues. In other words, we need non-ambitious evidence-based policies whose processes in terms of the development involve participatory approaches of the target groups. Then teachers need guidance. They need guidelines and tools, as well as school leaders, on how to implement gender-responsive schooling and pedagogies. And then we also, they need guidance on how to create safe learning environments, as well as monitoring some of these gender-responsive indicators. So in the next 1 or 2 minutes, I just want to share a quick experience of some of the work that we did in Uganda as the Institute. But what is amazing is that we are building on the work that was supported by the Azerbaijan project that was running from 2013 and to 2016. I know it was talked about by the previous speaker, where they were supporting the country to mainstream gender in teacher education, but focused on primary teacher education. So UNESCO, ICBA, in partnership with UNICEF and FAWE, and the Creative Action Institute, developed a toolkit on gender-responsive pedagogies that was implemented and is still being implemented and being rolled out in several countries. But for the Ugandan experience, it informed a number of interventions. One, it informed the National Gender and Education Policy. It also informed the development of national guidelines on gender-responsive pedagogies in teacher education. And also, it led to the training of 417 teacher educators, mostly from the science teaching fraternity, who are coming from the primary teacher training colleges, national teacher training colleges, and university colleges of education, and with an intention to make sure that these eventually train the in-service teachers, both pre and in-service, to address the low enrollments that were happening within the schools for the girls, and also the low uptake of science that was going on within the schooling system. And these teachers are being trained to design and incorporate gender-responsive teaching strategies, apply experiential learning activities that are gender-responsive, assess and understanding the psychosocialization, train teachers, as well as address issues of trauma-informed teaching strategies, and then conduct and execute country-specific activities, which eventually led to some kind of a mentorship and support supervision process, as well as working with the communities to identify role models that we are going to support the girls to remain in school, especially around the science interventions. As I finalize, because my 5 minutes, I'm sure they're over right now, I just want to re-echo that if we are thinking about addressing gender inequalities in the schooling system, it's very important for us to think about the policy level first. We need very clear, comprehensive, evidence-based policies that are well funded by governments. It's one thing to have a policy, but if it's not funded, then it will all fall into vain. And it's also very important to create awareness of all stakeholders, even the target groups, even the teachers, even the students themselves and the communities and the parents. They need to be aware of these moves. Then it's also important to involve the leadership, especially the schooling system. We may train teachers and the teacher educators, but if their leadership is not aware, much of our efforts will fall to a vault. And then I advocate for a holistic and coordinated approach that involves everybody. I know ministries have gender focal points. That's not the only one person that is responsible for mainstreaming gender. We need a coordinated approach for everybody to be involved. And then if we are to track the results, we need sound and reliable data and a very comprehensive monitoring and evaluation system. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria, Senior Program Coordinator at UNESCO IGBA, for addressing these issues related to gender disparities and the various challenges in terms of complementation rate, gender bias, gender parity, equity, equality, and for sharing the picture of education system in Africa with the different policies that are conducted at various speeds in Africa. Thank you also for sharing some questions and concerns regarding the way boys and girls are taken care of and the status of teachers, the infrastructures, the tools, the environment, and so on, and what needs to be done to efficiently address the discrepancies noticed in those areas. You have also shared experiential sharing of the case study in Uganda and the different achievements recorded in that study, but also the takeaways as well as the necessity to involve all stakeholders in those kind of activities. So thank you very much. I hope that participants have taken good notes of your presentation and they will revert with questions and comments. Thank you so very much. So now we are going to the next panelist. The next panelist is Mr. Fuad Husainov, Deputy Chairman of the State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and Internally Displaced People. Mr. Fuad Husainov will talk us about gender empowerment from refugees and IDPs perspective. So Mr. Fuad, if you are with us, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to extend sincere welcome to esteemed audience in the webinar, which is called Bridging the Gender Disparities and Inequalities. And I would like to particularly extend deep gratitude to the organizers of this event, UNESCO's International Institute for Capacity Building and Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, Embassy of the Republic of Azerbaijan in Ethiopia. I would like to extend sincere thanks to Mr. Ruslan Nasibov, Chargé d'Affaires of Azerbaijan and Ethiopia, and to a very close friend of mine, His Excellency Dr. Seymur Fataliyev, Ambassador at Large, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO. And I would like to thank for extending invitation and providing such a unique opportunity, unique forum for interaction, for exchange of views and thoughts and exchange of experience with our colleagues in African continent. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished moderator, Salih, for making very extensive background information. And by the way, I would like just to make one note. Mr. Salih referred to Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. Just would like to make a note that Azerbaijan Democratic Republic is a predecessor of the current state, which used to exist between 1918 to 1920, before it became a part of Soviet Union, and after regaining its independence in 1991, the official name of the state is Republic of Azerbaijan. So speaking on the issue of internally displaced persons is of paramount importance for my country, for Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan's sensitivities towards displacement problem are clearly understandable. As a country which has been hosting, in per capita terms, one of the highest caseloads of refugees and internally displaced persons in the world in the last 3 decades. So at the beginning of crisis, every 1 out of 7 persons were either refugee or internally displaced persons. These are human face, victims of Armenian aggression, occupation of 20% of Azerbaijani's territory, Nagorno-Karabakh, former Nagorno-Karabakh Oblast, and 7 adjacent districts, which led to displacement, to uprooting of these people, of almost 1 million persons from their lands of origin. And within the last 30 years' time, Azerbaijan has gained an enormous experience and knowledge base in dealing with a large-scale displacement. To date, 115 new modern residential complexes have been erected across the country in more than 30 cities and districts, and the state has managed to relocate as many as 315,000 people and provide them with improved housing. 2 state programs for improvement of living conditions of IDPs and increase of their employment opportunities were adopted by decree of the president, first in 1998 and second in 2004. And of course, gender factor as a cross-cutting issue has been mainstreamed in all state programs and annexes. As a result of purposeful activities by the state of Azerbaijan, again in a full compliance with UN guiding principles on internal displacement and UN Convention on Refugees of 1951, the poverty level among internally displaced persons in the last 25 years' time has dropped from 75 to 8%. And again, I would like to emphasize once again that these people, internally displaced persons and refugees, whose basic fundamental rights have been grossly violated as a result of Armenian aggression, including their right to adequate standard of living, right to food, right to education, social welfare facilities, and others. And Azerbaijani state has managed to preserve local authorities of previously occupied districts with only difference that they continue to exist and function in exile, including education establishments, schools, universities, to the extent that was possible. But notwithstanding an exemplary care and attention rendered towards the displaced population by national authorities of Azerbaijan, the only durable solution to the protracted displacement, as it was also clearly stated in the reports made by UN Special Rapporteurs on human rights of IDPs in the course of their missions to Azerbaijan, was closely linked to the political settlement of Armenia-Azerbaijan Nagorno-Karabakh conflict that would have enabled internally displaced persons to exercise their fundamental basic right to return in safety, dignity, and on a voluntary basis. But unfortunately, in spite of all mediation efforts, in spite of all resolutions adopted by the most reputable international organizations, including United Nations Security Council, 4 Security Council resolutions demanding unconditional, full, immediate withdrawal of occupying forces, no progress has been made, and internally displaced problem in Azerbaijan remained unresolved. And in the end, Azerbaijan had to implement Security Council resolutions on its own. In glorious victory in 44-day patriotic war, put an end to a long-standing occupation of Azerbaijani's territories, and not only reinstated, restored territorial integrity of the Republic of Azerbaijan and sovereignty within its internationally recognized borders, but also created conditions conducive for safe, dignified, and voluntary return of IDPs to their lands of origin. And at present, the Azerbaijani state has an honorable task to ensure restoration, sustainable development of liberated areas, and return and reintegration of IDPs to their permanent places of residence. And currently, security measures are being undertaken, magnificent projects implemented in the liberated territories with a focus on smart village, smart city concepts, green economy concepts. And great return of IDPs has been declared by decree of the president as 1 out of 5 national priorities for socio-economic development of the country to be achieved by year 2030. But at the same time, I would like to note that Armenia has contaminated a large amount of Azerbaijani lands with mines and other unexploded ordnance, to the extent that, according to international experts, this area along the former line of contact is considered to be as one of the most mine-polluted, mine-contaminated area on the earth today. And so far, it remains to be a great impediment, again, for IDPs to exercise their fundamental to return. And by doing so, Armenia still continues to grossly violate their fundamental rights. At present, State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and IDPs, along with other national stakeholders, are working on new state program for rehabilitation, restoration of liberated areas, and eventual great return of displaced population to their lands of origin. And to this end, State Committee is conducting massive surveys, intention surveys of internally displaced persons with a special focus, special emphasis on gender and age-specific needs and requirements, so that to ensure a sustainable return and settlement of internally displaced persons in the liberated areas. And we believe, in conclusion, I would like to state that with concerted efforts of international community, including UNESCO, in the coming few years, Azerbaijan will be in a position to present a new model of post-conflict rehabilitation and reintegration of displaced population, and will convert lands once occupied, liberated from occupation into a real paradise. And we count on support of international partners in this endeavor. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Fuad Husainov, Deputy Chairperson, Chairman of the State Committee for Affairs of Refugees and Internally Displaced People of the Republic of Azerbaijan. My apologies. My apologies. Thank you for the very informative intervention, where you have shared that historical background of the situation of the internally displaced people and the initiatives taken not only to relocate those displaced people, but to also rehabilitate the liberated territories with all the necessary, the intention to have all the necessary facilities. We all cross our fingers and pray for a definite solution of that situation with the help of the international community. So thank you again so very much. Now we proceed to the next Next panelist, who is Mr. Ravan Hazarnov, Executive Director of Baku International Multiculturalism Center. Mr. Ravan Hazarnov will talk us about, will make a reflection on gender from Baku International Multiculturalism Center. Mr. Ravan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, distinguished moderator. Dear participants of conference, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the floor in this important conference, and thanks for organization also. So I would like to use my limited time to give you briefly information on the policy of multiculturalism pursued by the state of Azerbaijan since the year of independence, and also about the Baku process, which was launched in 2008 as a result of the development of the policy and combined the platform for intercultural and interfaith dialogue. Historically, Azerbaijan has been a geography where different cultures, faiths, and ethnicities have coexisted. Tolerance and multiculturalism have always existed in our society, but multiculturalism was elevated to the level of state policy after the restoration of independence. The political and legal reforms implemented by the newly independent state took this principle into account. The first constitution of independent Azerbaijan guaranteed equal rights to everybody, regardless of ethnic or religious background, and declared the country as a unitary state. Everyone was given freedom to receive education in their mother language, to promote their cultural, and to publish publications in their own languages. All these factors may come as no we have in mind when we speak about the Azerbaijani model of multiculturalism, because if it's about cultural pluralism, it exists in most world states. Well, I would like to say that it is actually about the state's approach to cultural pluralism or confessional diversity. We do not allow not only allow different cultures and faiths to coexist on our territory, but also give equal political and material support to all minorities living in Azerbaijan. In other words, it is in the state interest that all cultures, different languages, and faiths existing on its territory are preserved, and the state provides ongoing financial support to ensure this. All religious places of worship, be it mosque, church, or synagogues, are built or renovated with the state financial support. In Azerbaijan, state agencies have also been created in line with the multiculturalism policy. In 2014, the State Advisory Service of Inter-Ethnic Relations, Multiculturalism, and Religious Issues under the President Administration of the Republic of Azerbaijan, as well as Baku International Multiculturalism Center, were set up. I will try to give you detailed information about the scope of activities our center later maybe. In short, we regard multiculturalism as a model of society management that has almost no alternative. This policy plays a crucial role as one of the ideological foundations of both public stability and social economic development. It's no coincidence that there has been no ethnic or religious conflict in Azerbaijan this far. The policy of multiculturalism can also be considered as an ideological barrier of preventing religious radicalism and extremism. Therefore, currently the policy of multiculturalism does not have any alternative. It's alternate on radicalism. Some politicians give statements that multiculturalism is failing. However, no reasonable model of society is suggested. This in turn creates problem. As for creating a single still topic idea. I believe that multiculturalism will lead to tensions on ethnic and religious ground. It is no coincidence that today the growing number of calls for hatred or conflicts are based on attempt to be based on religious or ethnic motives. It is due to this fact that the policy of multiculturalism is a crucial in domestic politics, as an intercultural and interfaith dialogue is for regional and global peace. Since 2008, Azerbaijan started its efforts to build intercultural and interfaith dialogue to achieve regional and global security and promote model of coexistence. It had geographic and moral grounds to do so. That is, Azerbaijan is a country with a multicultural society located at the crossroads of Europe and Islamic culture, representing both cultural him additional edges. In 2008, a platform for dialogue named Baku Process was launched as the initiative of the Republic of Azerbaijan. This platform combines important platforms such as Baku International Humanitarian Forum, the World Forum of Intercultural Dialogue, the Baku Summit of World Religious Leaders, the 7th Global Forum of UN Alliance of Civilization, and etc. For 12 years now, famous political and public figures, scholars, and Nobel Prize winners from around the world come together in Baku to find solution to humanitarian problems. The Baku process is a law that continues to operate today, calling for coexistence in mutual for us, both in domestic politics and in a regional and global politics. What does it mean? For us, is a multiculturalism is not just a static policy for that we use in a domestic policy. It is a key of regional and global peace. So that's why the president of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, initiated such kind of G20 Forum, Interface Forum, organize another important dialogue platform, Interface Dialogue Platform. Such kind of initiatives is typical for Azerbaijan because it is the state which declared multiculturalism as a state policy. That is briefly information about our policy related on multiculturalism and equality. Thank you for your attention, and I'm very glad to greet all of you from the cultural capital of Azerbaijan, from Shusha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ravan Hazarnov, for this brilliant intervention on gender, on the issue of gender from Baku International Multiculturalism. Thank you for sharing us some ideas about the policy of multiculturalism and the role of the Baku Center in the promotion of culture, including mother languages, and for insisting in the model of Azerbaijan in that area as the model of society. And congratulations for managing to have stability in the coexistence of religions, between religions and ethnic groups. And we encourage you to with those initiatives you've been taking. So thank you very much. Now, our next presenter, the panelist, is Dr. Ulkar Uzainova, Deputy Director of...
Sorry. Dr. Ulkar Babayeva.
Ulkar?
Babayeva.
Ah, Babayeva, not Uzainova. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So you'll be talking to us about presentation from the government of Azerbaijan on promoting gender empowerment in a predominantly Muslim country, history, and current status.
Excuse me, the remarks, the presentation will be dedicated to the initiatives of Azerbaijan in
gender responsive teaching.
In gender responsive teaching.
Okay. Thank you for that chance. Well, it's well noted. So, Doctor, you have the floor for that then.
Good day, everyone. I greet all of my colleagues and all of the colleagues from other countries from the sunny Azerbaijan, although it's windy today and it's a little rainy, but as a country, I believe we are located in a place where all of us call this land of fire and land of sun. So thank you, Mr. Nasibov. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nasir, for correcting the last name and the title of the topic. Yes, I will be talking about gender responsive teaching, the initiatives that we conduct in Azerbaijan from the education perspective, what initiatives we have been implementing in the last few years since pandemic. And I know I have only 8 minutes, so I'll try to be brief. If there are any questions, please feel free to type in the chat, because I'll be reading chat as well. So as a country where gender issues is an issue, just like in Ethiopia or any other country really, we have been conducting various research studies among our school children, among students of all education pillars and levels. And we've started doing that long before the pandemic, and pandemic allowed us to compare the data during the data we have obtained during pandemic and after pandemic. And considering the fact that we also faced the second crisis, war, my colleagues also talked about that in the fall of 2020. So we decided that conducting more research and trying to understand how War II crisis affected learning of our kids overall was necessary. So when we look at the educational learning outcomes, the student learning outcomes of our students across the country, and I'm talking about K-12 here, general education, general schooling, we realized that the outcomes of boys were much lower than outcomes of girls. This was an interesting finding, because we did not believe that overall it would be very statistically significant, but the finding was quite statistically significant. What it means is this was not random, this was not something by coincidence. A large number of students, large number of boys had difficulties answering the questions in comparison with girls. So that led to a number of initiatives, and together with UNFPA and UN Women, Institute of Education, let me explain a little bit. Institute of Education is a think tank organization, and we conduct a number of initiatives. We implement a number of projects in the field of education, and the vast majority of our project starts from early childhood education till doctoral studies. So as a think tank organization, we built relationships with these UN organizations and developed a few initiatives where we could enhance teachers' knowledge and skills about gender responsive teaching.
Hello?
Look at the materials. Yes. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Nasibu. And the gender responsive teaching is a new initiative. I can call it new because as a government, we did not really consider major initiatives in this field. There were many projects which included gender aspect, which had the gender element in education, but systematically when we looked at the data and data drove our actions, when we made the decision based on data, this was the first case. So UN agencies helped us to develop proper initiatives and proper response actions to these differences between boys and girls. In addition, we tried to look at textbooks. So we developed various approaches to review the content of our textbooks from the gender perspectives, and try to understand if the content provided to kids in the schools are gender responsive. So if there are any issues, the consultant and the staff of the Institute of Education now are working with a number of textbook authors where they're trying to take into consideration the feedback and make necessary changes to the textbooks that are going to be published very soon. So having said that, you can imagine a project that has 3 elements. The first element is textbook review. Second element is gender responsive teaching, where we try to develop the content and train our train our teachers who are already in service. And the third concept, which was totally new and probably specific to the context of Azerbaijan, and that was school improvement plan. So when we looked at schools and the results of schools and research results. And when I say research results, I refer to international assessment studies conducted by various international organizations such as PISA, TEAMS, PIRLS, ISOs. On the other hand, I'm referring to national assessment studies that Institute of Education are conducting. So having taken into consideration both studies, national and international, we had a lot of data and we could make data-driven decisions. And in order to improve our schools in line with improvement science, we had to go further and look and help them, support them with the school development plan, school improvement plan. I'm sure from education literature, many of you are quite familiar with school improvement and school improvement initiatives. And in this initiative, we tried to incorporate gender responsiveness, considering gender factors in the school improvement science. So in this initiative, when we are going to schools that had lower results than other schools in a particular region, we're trying to help them to better their results. And when I say the results, I mean their delivery, their instruction, the teaching, the management, administration, everything really, and use of teaching and learning resources, everything as a whole. We help them, we support them in scaffolding the process. So they develop teaching and learning, they develop use of resources, they develop instruction across the school and try to enhance, try to augment the learning of students, of boys in particular. So we have reviewed the literature, we have read international recommendations, recommendations from various international organizations. And in our in-service training programs for teachers, we try to compare how gender issues can be taken into consideration when planning a lesson, how content can be delivered in a way to ensure that boys and girls are learning. I mean, both girls and boys are learning. How can we adjust instructional practices? How can we apply a number of pedagogical strategies to make sure that both gender groups are learning and learning efficiently? On the other hand, we are also looking at assessment initiatives. So what assessment techniques are there? How can we evolve assessment techniques? How can we improve our existing practice so we can measure both students, both girls and boys in an equal manner and identify their learning outcomes to the best of their knowledge? So together with the UN FPA and UN Women, we've been implementing these initiatives. And so far, the good news is our teachers are quite responsive to these activities, to these projects, and they are admitting that they didn't even realize that you can adjust your pedagogical practice, you can adjust your instructional strategy to the gender, to the requirements of the gender. Same with the content development, same with the content review. And now with the school improvement plan, it's a good initiative that schools also understand. As a school, when you're looking at data and when you see high disparities among girls and boys, you should take some actions, right? You should take response actions toward that. So we are supporting these initiatives across the country. I also want to focus a little bit on challenges in this process. Now, all of the initiatives are quite useful, and we are obtaining a lot of wonderful feedback and how they're benefiting from the projects. We are also facing some challenges, and some of them are the challenges about the human resources. So, for instance, Institute of Education cannot cover the whole country. We have more than 4,000 schools. And it's almost impossible to cover every single school in a year, right? So it's taken time. We have 11 years of schooling and more than 14 subjects. It's very difficult to cover each subject, to review absolutely each textbook for absolutely each subject matter. So these are the challenges that we are facing. But we find these challenges quite normal, and we think that these are unavoidable, and we will be dealing with this as we move on. So the good thing is these topics are not new, and there are many research initiatives across the world. We read and hear a lot about practices, about experiences that other educational systems have applied. And just like our colleagues mentioned earlier, if you have anything you can share with us, we will be glad to hear, to learn, and to improve our capacity from. That would be wonderful. We would be very appreciative. So these are the initiatives that we are taking at the moment, and since the end of last year in particular, that come out of data, that come out of research studies, national and international. And as I said earlier, the initiatives tackle 3 areas: content from gender perspectives, delivery, instruction from gender perspectives, and assessment. So we have tried to apply all the knowledge and literature that we have read and analyzed to the educational context to the best possible. I hope that was useful. If there are any questions, I would be glad to take them. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Ulkar Babayeva, for this informative intervention. I'm sorry I got disconnected because of power. I'm connecting from the Gambia, and the power went off suddenly. But I heard a lot of what you have presented regarding learning, education learning outcomes, discrepancy between girls and boys, and since the UN agencies are providing to you, and all the efforts made to correct the bias. For example, in textbook, you have also shared the challenges you are facing, but we cross our fingers that we will find solutions to those challenges with the help of all partners. As we say, where there is a will, there is a way. So thank you very much. I think participants will provide also reflections about your presentations and some ideas.
Thank you so much.
Now I think, thank you very much. I think the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is Ms. Fidan Najafova. Is that so?
Yes.
Good. So you'll be dealing with addressing the gender digital divide to ensure access to teaching and learning through the use of gender responsive ICT delivery. So you have 8 minutes to tell us about that. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear distinguished guests, dear participants. First of all, I'd like to thank for the opportunity to have a speech in this great webinar, and I'd like to thank you, the organizers of this webinar. I'm from Bureau on ICT for Education under the Ministry of Education, and I'd like to give brief information about the implementation of different projects and the intervention of the Ministry of Education during the pandemic. In Azerbaijan, you know, the number of students in public schools in Azerbaijan is more than 1.5 million students, and the number of teaching staff is 150,000. And the number of public schools, including all both primary and secondary schools, is more than 4,000, around 4,500 schools. As the country was hit with COVID-19 pandemic, and national quarantine was announced on March 3, that resulted in closure of all educational institutions. Following the school closure, the Ministry of Education examined various strategies to mitigate the challenge. And no students should be left behind in terms of access to educational resources. So on March 11, the Minister of Education launched the project named Lesson Time, which was this project launched on a local TV channel in order to fulfill the accessibility of education in the country. And to address the challenge in education caused by the new reality of the social distancing, on April 2nd, the Ministry of Education launched the second project, the Virtual School Project, in collaboration with the long-term partner, Microsoft Corporation. Microsoft Teams platform was selected as the learning management system for this platform, for this project, Students and teachers are provided with the opportunity to self-register on the virtual school system using their national and student identification numbers, emails, and also mobile phone numbers. The system checks each applicant against the Ministry of Education's internal systems, and if the person is a current student or teacher, it allows registration on Microsoft Teams. Upon entering the system, each student were organized in two groups, in large groups of 9,000 students of the same grade, same age, and in the second group, which was their own school classes, which they were used to study before the pandemic. Through the channel of the large group, the Ministry of Education provides students with tests and content relevant to TV lessons on a weekly basis, and also the large group also contain Microsoft and third-party educational resources such as simulators, dynamic content by Flipgrid, MakeCode, Kahoot, Minecraft, Lego Education, Algorithm, and others. And in the second group, through the school class channel, students can communicate with their teachers and classmates. Once the class teacher activates his or her account, all students join the existing classes automatically, and such technical arrangement creates a seamless opportunity for teachers and students to find each other online and continue their lessons from where they stopped. Because students are organized in their respective classes, teachers don't need to search for students or share any links through other messaging channels prior to the event. By recording video lessons, teachers ensure all students, including those who missed classes, have access to lessons later on. Teachers and students can jointly plan their schedules to guarantee perfect timeless for lessons. And also this feature was particularly well received in the remote areas where families usually have a single gadget in the household. The assignments and grades features in the platform integrated and it allows teachers to develop various types of tasks, various types of questions, quizzes to be submitted by the certain deadline. From its inception, the virtual school platform received high public and media attention in Azerbaijan, so that in a month of its implementation, started from its implementation, 500,000 teachers and students, 500,000 users self-registered in the platform. And we also changed all data of the virtual school platform to the Azure platform, where we organize different dashboards. We organize different reports on Power BI. I'd like to show the screen of these dashboards. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yes, on this Power BI dashboard, Power BI platform, we tried to follow the registration of students, the registration of boys and girls in the platform. And here, at the end of the school year, during the pandemic in 2020, we organized evaluation on the platform. And as a result of the evaluation, we had enough data, electronic data, which allows us to follow the participation of girls and boys and the result of the girls and boys in the platform. Here we can easily search, here we can easily see the number of girl students in the evaluation forms and the number of the boys in the evaluation forms. And according to the, we can see the results based on the subjects and also based on the grades, based on the different subjects. And we can see the result of the participation of girls and boys across the regions, across the subjects, across the grades. And this platform, this data lakehouse give us opportunity to go on for the further analysis, to have prediction models by using artificial intelligence prediction for the future participation of girls and boys, for the future participation, for the future prediction of exam results of the students in Azerbaijan during face-to-face or online teaching. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for organizing this webinar.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Fidan Najaforova, for that reflection about addressing the gender digital divide to ensure access to teaching and learning through the use of gender responsive ICT delivery. Thank you for sharing statistics regarding teachers and school and the situation at the outbreak of COVID, as well as the proactive measures you have taken at the state level to address the challenges of the impact created by the impact of COVID-19. And thank you for sharing information about the platform and the results you have achieved. So congratulations, and I really wish that you keep it up. Thank you very much. So we acknowledge the presence of Dr. Bezawit Jirma, Secretary General of National Commission for UNESCO, who will be doing the closing remarks. But before that, we have another panelist, Ms. Kumar Ifgargizi.
Kumar Ilgargazi. Yes, Miss Kumar Ilgargazi.
Dear moderator,
leading advisor of the State Committee for Family, Women and Children Affairs. So Ms. Kumar, you'll be talking to us about institutionalizing the use of innovative practices of education in changing the lives of young girls. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
Dear moderator, thank you for giving me the floor. Dear participants, dear colleagues, thank you for your interesting presentations and for your contribution to our webinar. Achieving gender equality is one of Azerbaijan's highest priorities and is considered a necessary precondition for fully achieving human development. The government of Azerbaijan actively undertakes measures to distribute opportunity equitably and to support the equal and balanced participation of women and men in public and social life. Women have always been the backbone of the family and the main pillar of the sustainable structure of the society. Women empowerment and gender equality are the main focus areas of our global community. Moreover, Azerbaijan has potentially made progress in empowering women and mainstreaming them. Azerbaijan has a history of taking steps to empower women. In 1918, our colleagues already mentioned, the newly formed Republic of Azerbaijan became the first nation in the world to grant women the right to vote in the East. When it comes to our legal foundation of gender equality, I would like first of all to mention our Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan, which was adopted in 1995, and it prohibits discrimination based on sex. Article 25 of the Constitution declares that men and women possess equal rights and liberties. And our Constitution states that the rights of husband and wife are equal. Azerbaijan has signed international conventions on gender equality, and in 1995, Azerbaijan became a party to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discriminations Against Women, CEDAW, and signed optional protocol in 2000. And Azerbaijan committed to submit national regular reports every 4 years on measures they have taken to comply with treaty obligations. The legal foundation of gender equality was further enhanced in 2006 with the adoption of the law on state guarantees of gender equality. And I would like to mention one of the articles of this law, the equal opportunities for exercising the right to education. And this article states that the state ensures creating equal opportunities for males and females in admission to all educational institutions, regardless of poverty form, providing students with scholarships, selecting educational plan, and evaluating knowledge. And textbooks shall be based on the principle of gender equality. Ms. Ulkarbabayev already mentioned about the textbooks based on gender responsive responsive textbooks. In 2010, Azerbaijan enacted the law on prevention of domestic violence, which addresses domestic, physical, psychological, and sexual violence. In 2011, the government amended its family code to set the legal age of marriage at 18 for both women and men. It also updated its criminal code to prohibit early or forced marriage. Forcing of a woman to enter into marriage is punishable by fine in size from 2,000 to 3,000 minutes or by deprivation of liberty for a period up to 2 years. And the same acts committed against a person who have not achieved the legal age is punishable by fine in size from 3,000 to 4,000 minutes or by deprivation of liberty for a period up to 4 years. Secondly, I would like to mention the role of a national body for gender equality in Azerbaijan. It was the State Committee on Women's Issues, which was established in 1998. The committee was mainstreaming gender concepts into laws, public policy, and state programs and projects. But in 2006, by the decree of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, it was replaced to the committee, to the State Committee for Family, Women, and Children Affairs. And this committee is active in mainstreaming gender into state policies, programs, and laws, and in developing information systems for gender-related monitoring. Azerbaijan legislation ensures equal pay for the same labor, position, and profession for both women and men. The salary for the same job may vary only based on the work experience and academic degree. However, our country still has a gender wage gap, and we have several reasons to explain the difference in earnings between women and men. And one of the reasons is the concentration of women in lower paying occupations in health, such as in health, education, and services, is just one factor. The underrepresentation of women in management positions is another potential contributing factor. Women's representation in the parliament is gradually increasing, and women candidates have been increasingly successful in municipal elections. Women are present in the civil service, but at senior levels, they are underrepresented. According to the results of the elections, I'd like to give you some numbers about that. According to results of the elections in Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, 81.8% of the members of Parliament are men, and 18.2% are women. In 2004, women comprised 4% of those elected to municipal councils, but in 2019, the number of men elected to local self-government bodies was 61%, and the number of women was 39%. Active participation of women at all levels of education and career development is one of the main priorities of the Azerbaijani government's education and gender policy. Women predominate among employees of higher education institutions, secondary education institutions, and primary vocational education institutions. When it comes to senior positions, men predominate in management position. The exception is secondary education institutions. In 2021, out of 100 students in Azerbaijan, 47 were women and 53 were men. The number of women involved in vocational education continues to grow. In 2020, 32.8% of students admitted to vocational education institutions were women. And the total number of employees at the Azerbaijan National Academy of Sciences in 2020 was 9,984 people, of which 6,240 people were women. The available statistics show that women have a significant share in scientific activities. However, the number of women in leadership positions is much lower than that of men. The State Committee for Family, Women, and Children Affairs regularly conduct training, seminars, and enlightenment projects in order to increase awareness on the importance of education among girls, and especially among their parents. The lack of education among girls leads to different kinds of problems, such as early marriages. Thus, having education education plays a vital role in combating early marriages. Of course, enlightenment training, seminars, and projects should be held not only among young girls and women, but also among their parents. The effect of these enlightenment trainings and seminars will be achieved when parents and at the same time non-governmental organizations will join them. Combating early marriages should be a coordination work of both governmental agencies and non-governmental organizations. And I would like to mention one of our events, which was taking place in 2021 on 11th October. The event was dedicated to the 120th anniversary of the first secular school for girls in the East, which opened in Baku in 1901, has a special place. It was established by great philanthropist Tagiev. The appearance of the school coincided with the establishment of a new culture in Azerbaijan, which combined elements of traditional and advanced European civilizations. The purpose of the event was to continue the historical traditions of philanthropy in Azerbaijan and to support young people, especially girls, to benefit from modern educational opportunities in the development of our country. The event provided information about the importance of girls, equal development, education, economic and social life, protection of their rights in the development of society, and the exceptional role of the girls' school created by Tagiev in this direction. Especially, I would like to mention the committee's project, Support to Young Girls Education campaign, where students from low-income families living in the rural and regional areas who achieved high results in the entrance exams to higher education institutions in 2021 were supported. The campaign Support Young Girls Education regularly will be held each year, and in order to support, motivate, and help with funding issues by different private sector representatives, such as banks, organizations, or women entrepreneurs. The State Committee for Family, Women, and Children's Affairs, in cooperation with the United Nations Development Program, the German Society for International Cooperation in British Petroleum, has established women's resource centers. At present, the committee has women's resource centers in 17 districts. The Women's Resource Centers operate as a technical body that provides a wide range of services to women and girls, including consulting, mentoring, networking, strengthening, safe space, effective communication. Women's Resource Centers at schools and communities carries out courses and training such as prevention of early marriages, girls' education, domestic violence, human trafficking, gender equality, human rights, drug abuse, financial literacy, civil rights, reproductive health, sex-selective abortions and its consequences, management of family budget, business skill development, entrepreneurship, leadership development, computer and vocational courses. Enlightenment meetings among students, young girls, and parents and teachers were conducted. In total, 8,200 women were involved in trainings and events on various topics by the Women's Resource Centers. This reflects the positive dynamics in terms of social participation in girls' education. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kumar, for this very informative intervention, where you have talked to us about the achievements regarding the empowerment of women and all the law passed and the campaigns conducted in that regard with the assistance of some UN agencies. You have mentioned the significant status of women in scientific activities, but the increase of women regarding, I mean, political situation, but still a lot needs to be done. So thank you very much. I hope that there will be an improvement in the near future. Now we have heard from our panelists, but before going to the discussion, I would like to request all of us to turn on our videos to take a group picture. So Jerusalem, you can lead us on that. So please let us turn on our videos for a group picture. Yerus and Hanok, over to you. Yerus?
Please open up videos.
Yes.
Yes, as Henok is ready to take the group picture. I hope all of
Okay. So Henok, guide us on that, please.
Yeah. There are some, I'm waiting for some colleagues to switch on their cameras. If you could all switch on your cameras, please. Okay, on three.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Yes. And one more, please. One, two, three. Smile.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Henok, for that. So we can turn off the videos to have better conditions of listening and hearing. Now that we have heard from the various panelists, I think all the panelists have taken the floor, if I'm not mistaken. We go to the discussion. It is an open discussion on potential lesson that can be scaled up in Africa to strengthen regional evidence-based policies, strengthen teacher preparedness and teaching practices for inclusive education to retain the most marginalized learners, especially the girls, to remain in school amidst the emerging crisis. So any reflection on that, on what the panelists have shared, are welcome. You can have the floor directly, but you can also convey your questions and comments through the chat box.
Salud, there is a question from Rusnawak. She would like to find out if the program is also, Azerbaijan supported program is also going on in Zambia.
Yes, exactly, Miko. Thank you very much for reminding me of that question. Yes, I would like to find out if the program is also going on in Zambia. Would you like to join the facilitators? I don't know if any of our guests could answer that.
Regarding the programs in Zambia, I will answer the question if nobody's answering.
Please.
Regarding the program in Zambia, we can study this opportunity as well in future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Okay, I think Ms. Roos has answer to her question. She has got the answer to her question. So, but you can still come on again and then share more comments about any follow-up questions or comments. Any other ideas from participants? Okay, thank you, Roos. Yerus, is there any other question in the chat?
No, we don't have any question in the chat, but we encourage colleagues to share their comments and even their experience. They can also share their experience.
Okay.
How we can scale up in Africa also.
Okay. Our honorable collaborators and partners from Azerbaijan are also welcome to share any other ideas regarding future collaboration or strengthened collaboration with Africa. If there are any other ideas they wanted to share and they did not have the opportunity to share during the panel, the ideas are welcome also. Thank you.
Sorry, Sally,
No,
I
no,
raised my
no,
hand.
yes.
I don't know whether I can see it.
Okay. Okay. Yes. You raise your hand, but can I give Maimuna first, please, Jerusalem, Victoria? Maimuna, you have the floor, and then after I give the floor to Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Salut, merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, Excellence. Je voudrais remercier tout particulièrement Dr Yumiko et son équipe pour l'organisation de cet excellent webinaire. Donc, je suis Maïmouna Sissoko Touré, je suis la coordinatrice du centre KIX Afrique 21 qui couvre 21 pays d'Afrique francophone et lusophone et qui est basé à l'Organisation internationale de la francophonie, OIF. Cette thématique qui est abordée aujourd'hui est une thématique très importante dans le contexte actuel, ça a été dit. Ce contexte aussi de changement de paradigme au niveau mondial, mais plus particulièrement en Afrique. Un continent avec beaucoup de défis à relever en ce qui concerne le secteur de l'éducation. L'égalité des genres et l'équité constituent un pilier fondamental pour la construction de nos systèmes éducatifs, de manière justement à aller vers des systèmes inclusifs et performants. Ceci est vrai d'autant plus que nous avons eu à réaliser au niveau de notre centre une étude en 2020 avec le concours de nos pays partenaires sur l'identification des priorités régionales. Et cette thématique est bien entendu ressortie comme étant une priorité pour tous les pays. Certes, des efforts ont été fournis ces dernières années avec des mesures spécifiques en termes d'accès, en termes de gouvernance aussi et en termes d'apprentissage, mais beaucoup reste à faire. Et je pense que ce webinaire aujourd'hui nous donne finalement l'occasion et l'opportunité d'approfondir, d'apprendre en tout cas de l'expérience de l'Azerbaïdjan, qui est très intéressante, et d'autres expériences, mais aussi d'approfondir notre réflexion sur la thématique et de nous rendre compte aussi que finalement le numérique est également un véritable vecteur de développement et un gain d'opportunité. On a entendu tout à l'heure l'intervenante, un gain d'opportunité en termes d'accès à l'éducation des filles et d'autres couches vulnérables de la population, mais un gain d'opportunité aussi en termes de gouvernance des systèmes. Je vais m'arrêter là. C'était une petite contribution. Et bonne fête à l'Afrique, bonne fête de l'Afrique à toutes et à tous. Et merci encore et félicitations à Aïba. Merci. Salut.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Maïmouna. Merci beaucoup, Maïmouna, pour cette réflexion très brillante. Je pense que tout le monde a pris bonne note. Ce n'était pas une question, mais c'était une contribution qui a toute son importance. Donc, merci beaucoup. Vous êtes la coordinatrice de KIX 21 et je vais passer la parole à la coordinatrice de KIX 19, Victoria.
Thank you, Salio. Let me not talk about KIX right now. Anyway, I want to first of all thank the government of Azerbaijan. Forgive me if I mess it up, but I really want to appreciate the speakers because we've learned a lot. And I really want to thank, especially like Dr. Babaeva. I learned something that was quite interesting about the component of learning assessment and the kind of various tools that you've been using to analyze and assess textbooks. I'd be interested in having a look at some of these tools, if it's okay with you, because it's one element that we need to look at. And I was wondering how you are able to assess all the textbooks for all the subjects from K to 12. And that sounds like a big amount of work. But I wanted to hear more about the experiences in that arena, or you selected specific subjects. That's something I wanted to know. And then it was quite interesting also to hear from Ms. Kumar in terms of what you're doing, the comprehensive approach. There's quite a lot to learn, and I'm just hoping that we can have further discussions and collaborations in terms of building experiences around some of these activities that you have talked about, especially around even the reestablishment of women resource centers for the marginalized communities. That was quite very interesting. Thank you very much. Over to you, Salim.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victoria, for the comment, and thank you for the questions. I think that Ms. Babayeva and Kumar have taken good notes of the questions. If they want to come in, they can bring their reflections about those questions. Babayeva, Kumar, any reaction? Hello. Or anybody
Dr.
from
Babayeva, Ms.
Azerbaijan?
Kumar Elgargaze, would you like to react to the question? Just a minute. I think the connection is poor.
Yeah, the connection is poor on my side. Also, the connection is poor. We are facing those challenges. But anyway, we can convey the questions to them later, and then if they have any responses, we can get to.
Mr. Sal, can you please repeat that?
Yes,
Yes.
Babayeva, is that okay?
Yeah.
You want us
Thank
to
you
repeat
so
the
much.
question?
Yeah, I can repeat for
Okay, good.
the
Go
sake of
ahead, please,
understanding.
Victoria. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I was quite impressed by the fact that your component that you talked about involves analysis of textbooks to make sure that they are gender responsive. And you looked at the broad range of K all the way to 12. And from our perspective in Africa, those are so many subjects. So I was wondering how you managed to assess all those textbooks. Did you pilot some subjects? Did you choose some subjects? And what kind of tools are you using? That would be nice to hear. And what has been your experience so far? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tisaki. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. So what we did was we made sure that we are looking at the textbooks that will be published, that will be reprinted. So every 4 years, we are reprinting books. And we have a certain cycle. So let's say this particular year, grades 3, 7, and 10 will be reprinted. And having known that, we have looked particularly for grades 7, 3, and 10, because we knew they would go into print and we had time to make necessary changes. So we looked at all subjects in these grades, and we had just a little more time, and we looked at some of the textbooks that we are piloting at the moment. So when I say piloting, there's an initiative by the government, by the Ministry of Education, that the Institute of Education is implementing. That means after the textbook is written, we are piloting the textbook 1 academic year in the real classroom set. So we take opinions of teachers, students, and parents, and try to understand what the issues are in the textbook, what the matters are, and how the textbook can be developed, what we can change, what we can enhance, maybe modify, maybe replace, etc., etc. So the textbooks are being piloted for 1 academic year, and during this pilot, we also obtain feedback from other stakeholders and receive the opportunity to make necessary changes to the textbook and then submit to reprint, to the printing. So we didn't have enough time and human resources to cover absolutely all subjects, all textbooks, and all grades. We only prioritized the ones that are going to be printed in July of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Babayeva, for that response, for those additional elements which help us more and understand better the situation of what you are doing. Thank you very much. We are really grateful. I don't know if Ms. Kumar could bring some elements. If not, we go to the closing, because we have really heard from you, and the information you have provided is really very valuable and very helpful to us. Thank you so very much. So we can now go to the closing session, because we have even gone beyond the time that was allotted to us. Now, for the closing session, I'm kindly inviting Dr. Bezawit Girma, Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO Ethiopia, to provide us with the closing remark of this webinar. Dr. Bezawit, you have the floor. You are muted. You are muted. Your microphone is muted.
Is that okay now?
Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Salu. Our dear moderator and participants, thank you so much. And I would like to extend my appreciation for UNESCO ICBA and the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan for organizing this online webinar on bridging the gender digital divide and inequality. As we all know, a need for quality education and gender equality are increasing more than ever to assure peace, eliminate poverty, and other in order to create a better place for our children and grandchildren. During the pandemic, schools and most organizations were enforced to closure, but there are some countries which have an amazing experience and sustained the pandemic and go for the gender equality. Among these countries, Azerbaijan has done a great thing through an implementation of gender responsive online learning opportunities. And the government of Azerbaijan has institutionalized the use of innovative practice of education in changing the life of youth girls by implementing program on inclusive education with a teacher training program introduced to the formal curriculum of national pre and in-service teacher training, and by working with the concerning bodies. When we are come to our country, Ethiopia has been carried out different trainings for women teachers in order to capacitate them on teaching and learning process. And in addition to this, Ministry of Education has included the gender-related issue in its curriculum. And moreover, the government of Ethiopia is empowering women in different organizational institution, governmental institution. So as a continent, we have to develop a better way to alleviate a problem and share Azerbaijan's experience on women empowerment and inequality for a sustainable development, poverty reduction, and in order to create a great generation with a sense of humanity and responsibility. Once Michelle Obama said, no country can truly flourish if it's stifle the potential of its women and deprive itself of the contribution of half of its citizens. And thank you all for attending and sharing your best experiences on this online webinar. Thank you all. I think you had a good time here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bezawit, the Secretary General of the National Commission for Ethiopia. Thank you for that closing remark, which has a lot of information, and for the commitment to further the collaboration between Ethiopia and Azerbaijan. Actually, we have a lot to learn from each other. And I really loved the last sentence, the last idea of your speech regarding the importance of educating women. And it was mentioned by one of our collaborators at the beginning. You educate a boy, you educate one person, but you educate a woman, you educate a family and even a society. So thank you very much. Let's keep it up and progress with the collaboration between Azerbaijan and Ethiopia, but Azerbaijan and Africa as a whole. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you for your active participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally,
Thank
for
you
your
very much to
moderation.
everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr.
Yeah,
Dmytro
thank you.
Yakozaki. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all
Bye-bye.
participants.
Thank you for participating.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the interpreters also.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to interpreters also. Yes.
Yes, merci beaucoup, hein, interpreters. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci. Merci.
And